I think that Razer has really cracked the code with making the best pro controllers for console and PC, and the Razer Raiju V3 Pro is definitely the ultimate testament to that. Let's check out this controller in this review. I am really excited to show you guys what this controller has up its sleeve. It's really comfortable, incredibly customizable, even though it seems like just a regular black plain Jane controller with some back buttons on it. This thing is absolutely fantastic, and I'm gonna show you exactly why. You should probably put this thing in your cart, especially if you play on PlayStation or PC. You should have this controller. Quick unboxing, but basically not my favorite part is going to be the cable that the controller comes with. It's this pretty thick rubberized cable, but honestly, when you're playing with it, it doesn't really matter too much. But it would be nice if it was like maybe a slightly more flexible, but again, this does work really well, so I really don't have any major complaints with that. There's another small complaint that I have about the controller that we'll get into later, but basically you have your wireless dongle in the box, a tool to take out the back buttons and replace them with blanks, and a couple of different thumbsticks, and that's pretty much it for the unboxing experience and the carrying case. And now getting into the Raiju V3 Pro. You have your traditional PlayStation layout, but this in the hand does not feel like a traditional PlayStation controller except for the thumbstick placement. In reality, it really feels like an Xbox controller in your hand that feels a little bit more conformed to your hand and more comfortable. There are some nice texturized grips on the sides as well. The front of the controller has a nice satin finish to it, and then the buttons are actually PBT plastic, pretty similar to some keyboard keycaps. And the thumbsticks that come on the controller, as well as the anti-friction rings, are incredibly smooth and super responsive. These thumbsticks are TMR thumbsticks, so it's like Hall effect, but the next level of Hall effect. So basically, you should never have stick drift on this controller, and that should basically never be a problem. You do have a touchpad up at the top as well, because this is for PlayStation 5. And then the front buttons, again, they all have tactile clicks. Your triggers, not necessarily mechanical clicks like the face buttons, but they are nice and tactile as well. And then you also have your Razer M1 and M2 buttons here next to your bumpers and triggers. I always love using these on the Razer controllers, and I'm surprised that other brands haven't picked up on this, because I actually prefer to have buttons here remapped compared to having 4 buttons or paddles on the back. But I know it's honestly good to have the option for all of them, because what I've been doing with my previous few Razer controllers is mapping these 2 commands as the same and then mapping these 2 as different. But when I use another controller, I kind of have a hard time with that, just because I don't main controller anymore. I usually main keyboard and mouse, so sometimes I'll get a little confused. But regardless, I love that Razer has these buttons up here. Now the triggers, you do have your full analog triggers, and then you also have instant mouse click triggers as well. And then the triggers also have another trick up their sleeve that we'll go over with when we go over the software. And I was gonna skip out on the software, but the software is absolutely not to skip out about on this review, because I think it's really important. It's really good and super underrated, and I'm actually glad that Razer Synapse is still around and they're making some huge improvements to it. The D-pad is mechanical as well and does have more tricks up its sleeve. And then for remapping, you'll press and hold the button, tap on the paddle that you want to remap, and then tap the face button, and then this will light up and let you know that you did it, and then you can repeat that for other mappings across the controller. As far as party tricks of this controller and features, PC mode, PS5 mode, wired mode, wireless mode. So for wired PC play, this controller can go up to 2000 hertz polling rate. You can drop that down as well if you would like to, but it is able to be, let's say, quote unquote, overclocked to 2000 hertz. So that's really good. It's a pretty fast controller. When you're using it on wireless mode, I believe it's only, we'll check that out. I can't remember what the wireless mode is off the top of my head, but we'll look in the software shortly. That's pretty much it. Like, getting around the controller is really comfortable. I love these thumbsticks. Like, these are probably the nicest thumbstick that I've used in a while. And then the grips, these grips, after using them, let's say for gaming for 2 hours with the controller, my hands aren't super sweaty and clammy, so I do like the grips. Like, they have just the right amount. But if this had a slight bit more of like a chalky feel, I don't think I would hate that actually. So that would probably help out a little bit with the grip, but I think that this is going to be great for most people. So you can remove those back buttons. I've seen a couple other reviewers videos, but like, honestly, I haven't even wanted to try it because it looks really cumbersome. I think I would rather just change the profile instead of actually removing them, because when I attempted to remove this M6 button right here, I kind of got a really uneasy feeling, and I was like, you know, I'm just gonna leave it because I don't want to mess it up. I wish that they would come out with a different way on how to remove and replace these paddles, or buttons I should say, and not have to use a tool and literally unscrew it and then screw it back in. I just don't really like that, and that's not very quick or dynamic about the controller. Everything else about the controller is very quick and dynamic. All right, I messed up the first recording, so we're doing this again. But here is the Raiju V3 in the Razer Synapse application. So we do have 250 or 500 polling rate while wireless with the 2.4 gigahertz dongle, and we are on the PC mode, obviously. But once I go ahead and plug this in, 1000 and 2000 hertz are obviously only while you're wired. And then we do have some other features here too. So you do have 4-way D-pad and 8-way D-pad. I just like the 4-way. It just feels a little bit more accurate to me if you're playing FPS games and you're trying to quickly do, an input to use an additional action that's like, not running around moving or shooting, stuff like that. But maybe you need 8-way for a fighting game. Now you do also have SOCD, which is basically like if you're using a Hall effect keyboard or analog keyboard and they let you basically use your last input. This controller does have that as well, and it works okay. But I just think the D-pad is probably not set up for the best input for that, but it's cool that it has it. Is that really practical for FPS games? No. Is it going to be more practical for maybe a fighting game? Potentially. So now moving on, the triggers are really cool. Check this out. So if you have them set to analog, basically you get your full range of motion for activation, which is good. That works as normal. It works great for driving games or anything that gives you basically linear actuation of the trigger for an in-game action. But you can also set a digital trigger. And the digital trigger is really cool because not only do you have the mechanical trigger stop that we talked about earlier, but you do have a super fast, digital trigger that only requires 10% of input or 1% of input, whatever you select. I have it set to 10%. Then you can also select rapid trigger, which basically now you can rapid fire your trigger as fast as you can move it. Like, that's really cool. I have not seen that on another controller, but now is that going to get you banned in the game? I'm not entirely sure, but it is cool. Use that at your own risk, but I do think that's a really cool feature that we have on keyboards again, but just beware. But that's a really cool feature. Like, that's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. It basically, like, even if it didn't have like the mechanical digital triggers, it kind of wouldn't matter because you could hit it so fast. It feels more natural that way. That's really impressive. Like, for that feature alone, if you are a pro gamer, I would probably look at buying this controller. Like, seriously, that's insane. Now the thumbsticks, you can also change, dead zones and stuff like that. I don't ever really mess with my dead zones. Power, you can basically change on when you want it to go to sleep. Calibration, if you want to recalibrate your thumbsticks, if they're feeling a little off, feel like you're catching a little bit of drift, you can recalibrate them so you can get rid of that too. And basically this controller in theory should last you a really long time. This is a Razer product, but it actually doesn't feature any RGB lighting at all, which is pretty funny. But basically that's it, guys. Like, this controller, in my opinion, is pretty impressive. Other than taking off these back buttons and the cable, I really don't have anything bad to say about this controller. Like, those are two pretty minor things. Like, again, I would never remove these back buttons with the implementation that they have right now. And the cable is really not a big deal. It works, and you can always use a different USB cable as well. But for the money, I believe this controller is $199. If not, I'll put it up on the screen right now. I am incredibly impressed with what Razer has done.